right, let's get into consulting best practices. Some of them, we'll see there's some overlap with training, of course. But consulting tends to be much more, so what you're delivering is much more tailored. So, you probably are focused just on one client, one company at the time versus training you do maybe for several companies. And then hopefully actually consulting is also what comes out of the training. Maybe through the training you inspired some of the participants to learn more, or maybe they recognized this is where they need more help. Like they love the training, they got a lot out of it, but they have a specific need or specific problem where the training was still too broad and they need your individual attention to help them solve that problem. So consulting ultimately is about providing value, right? Because you're getting paid, hopefully. So for somebody to be ready and willing to compensate you, there has to be something you are delivering in terms of value. Could be expertise, could be content, could be ideas on how to shape behaviors, what skills to develop within the company, any other resources that you provide to the client. But it is about moving them, shaking the status quo sometimes a little bit and moving them from point A to point B. They know where they want to be. They are not sure how to get there. That's where you come in as a consultant. So again, we touched on the why of hiring a consultant. Could be just raw expertise, especially on so maybe some areas of compliance that get a little bit technical. Could be experience. You want, if you are trying to put in place a compliance program, say in your company, but you haven't done it, you want somebody who has that experience to help guide you through the process. It could be help with planning on specifically how to do it, or maybe training staff of that company on once the new compliance program is in place. Mentoring specific staff members, or maybe working with the board on how to support the process. And usually consultants, the greatest value of consultants sometimes is just to have a fresh set of eyes and sort of an extra jolt of motivation. Even if you're not imparting any new knowledge, even if the people in the company you work with know everything they need to know about compliance, but there's still something missing. They need to be pushed across the finish line to actually get started to implement some of the concepts of a compliance program. Or maybe it feels like the champions of it within the company, maybe executive director, maybe the board, want help from an external set of eyes to examine how things are working now, what could be better, and to provide that extra motivation to actually move from just thinking about doing things or talking about doing things to actually doing things.
Anna,
Right.
Anna, if I may, just one quick comment on the previous point that you just made about the fresh set of eyes. Sometimes when we are involved in our daily activities, we just feel sometimes the need to discuss with somebody, to get somebody else's perspective, to validate whether our approach is the right one or not. And that is when sometimes the consultant can come in and assess, or just act as a sounding board. Is this right? Is this what we are experiencing normal? Have other people done it? How have they done it? This is what we want to do. What do you think? Just get a second opinion, if you like.
Absolutely, agreed on that. So then we come to the question, well, what is the consultant's role? And there's always the dilemma, do you give them fish or do you teach them how to fish? That is the question. And the answer, maybe it depends, right? It depends on what they need at a particular time. but usually it's healthier, or it's more sustainable, it's more effective if you are there to teach them how to fish. In other words, maybe somebody, a client says, we would like to introduce a compliance program. We don't have a code of ethics right now. We would like to have a code of ethics. Can you write a code of ethics for us? And I say, sure. Here's a code of ethics. I wrote it beautifully. It's wonderfully phrased. It uses international best practices. There, go. Did I help them? Maybe I delivered something potentially of value, but what are the chances of that code being delivered totally from the outside with no consultation with anybody in the company? What are the chances of people actually feeling like they own those words and they are motivated to live by them? Probably not so great. So ideally, sometimes it may be a wholesale product that you're delivering, but ideally you want to help people facilitate their own journey in compliance and guide them on the way to coming up with their own solution. So something like a code of ethics, you would want this to be a much more involved process where you have consultations with different staff members, where you have clear leadership from the executive director, from the board, so that the chances of implementation are higher. And this chart kind of shows the range of how consultants may be involved. They may be this independent expert, just a fresh set of eyes that may analyze the situation, may provide certain information, maybe mentor or counsel on an issue. But as we move to the right, the consultant's role can be much more involved, from providing knowledge or insights or analysis to actually co-creating change. So a more involved step may be the consultant becoming a trainer, helping with some aspects of compliance training, providing feedback on how the program is implemented. Or they may be a sort of fully fledged collaborator who helps to create the program, is there at different stages of the way, is a proactive advisor, and really is not just advising on the change, but is sort of becoming one of the stakeholders in the change. And again, just some fairly self-explanatory thoughts on the consulting process. Again, many of them track with how you would prepare for a training and how you would evaluate a training. So again, it always starts with the need. I may have some things in mind that I think your company needs, but I need to validate that by talking to hopefully a wide range of people within that company. And then based on that needs assessment, you develop tailored solutions, you offer support. Again, it may be on different ends of that scale that we were looking at in the previous slide. You make sure that whatever you do is documented, that you have some concrete leave behind, so that your client has written documentation of what you've done that they can come back to later. And of course, you want to track progress, see are the changes that you're helping the client make, are they actually happening? And then report on that progress and evaluate the effectiveness, both in the short term, kind of similar to training, like was the client happy overall or not? And then sort of go much deeper into what specifically they were happy with, what didn't work as well, just so that you can improve for the next time. And then obviously from the impact perspective, you want that follow-up a few months after the consulting engagement is over, just to see sort of what happened with it after your involvement ended. Scoping the client's needs. again, goals are always the number one priority to start with. You need to know where you are going in order to figure out how to get there. So if every consulting essentially engagement is a change management exercise. The client is here, point A, they want to get here to point B. So you need to understand what that point B is to be able to effectively advise them. And really take your time to understand the issue. Now this can be a little bit tricky because as consultants, we come in as experts, right? It sounds like, well, we are paying us for something. So it sounds like, shouldn't we already know everything about the issue? And the answer is yes, you may know a lot on, some aspects, like say, technical aspects of compliance, how to set up a compliance program, but you're not an expert on every single industry out there. So you may be working with a company in a sector that you've never worked with before. So there's always, with each client, there's a lot to learn upfront and a lot to understand about peculiarities of their sector, the specific risks that they may be taking or facing when it comes to anti-corruption. So you have to do, you have to do some background research, but also you learn a lot by talking to people, and that's where it gets tricky, because you don't want to come across as not know. It's like people may get a little apprehensive, thinking, well, why is this consultant asking me so many questions? Like, what are we paying them for? Shouldn't they already know the answers? And the answer is no, not necessarily. If they are a good consultant, they will actually take the time to understand your specific company, your specific need, your specific industry and situation. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't feel like you're coming in with already made answers. And that also goes to help to clarify expectations. The client may have something in mind that you are just, it's not feasible to deliver for whatever reason. So you need to set the boundaries of, what are the parameters of the change we're trying to achieve here. And you have to be realistic and have that meeting of the mind with the client up front, because that's the greatest risk of any consulting project is misaligned expectations, where the client thinks they're getting one thing, but in your mind you're getting something else. And then if you wait until the end to find out that that was the case, it's not going to be a happy situation. Timeline, again, that goes back to sort of expectations and being realistic about how long things may take. Required resources, budget, right? I mean, you may have a figure in mind, your client may have another figure in mind. So make sure to agree ahead of time on what's mutually acceptable. Critical success factors, there may be some things outside of your control, and that you need to be very clear with your client. It's like, look, I can help you with this, but then there are those other risk factors that I have no control over. So let's be clear about what actions need to happen within the company itself, for instance, for your project to be successful. And right, the level of engagement are you expected? How many hours are you expected to spend on this project? What's the budget for it, and so forth. Providing solutions.
If I can make just one quick comment regarding the success factors here. If we are talking about compliance, I think one key success factor is the engagement of the leadership of the organization, making sure that they are on board, they are okay, they are aware, and they support whatever change, small or bigger change that you are working to help them introduce. This is one of the, in my opinion, this is definitely one of the biggest success factors. I mean, you can have a beautiful compliance program on paper, but if the leadership does not support it, it will probably be poorly implemented or ignored altogether.
Absolutely, that's a key point of having the champions for change and knowing who they are is crucial. and you need to have, at least some champions at the board level, at the executive level. It cannot be just, an effort of lower level staff that has no support of the leadership. And so here are some examples of what consulting solutions you may be providing specifically in the compliance context. Those are things like identifying compliance risks that, again, are specific to that company, to that industry. And then assistance with developing a compliance framework that accounts for those specific risks. That's the sort of 101, compliance 101 is risk-based, right? In order to develop an effective compliance framework, you need to know what are the corruption risks that particular company is facing. Again, maybe the company has already done it. Now they are ready to actually train their staff on the compliance framework, compliance program they have in place. Maybe they need a little help with building awareness of the program. So that could be another intervention you do, training staff. Or maybe testing the effectiveness of the current program. So looking at, reviewing policies and procedures, maybe testing reporting mechanisms. What happens if you call the hotline? Does anybody pick up? Maybe testing, reporting. Is the board aware that the compliance program is in place or not? If not, that's a problem. And there may be other ideas you can explore during your live session, but I'll let Carmen just give you a taste of a few examples that we've had from past participants in the COT.
Thank you, Anna. I would like to just give a few examples of what other consultants have conducted in terms of compliance assignments. And one example is that of our colleague Grace Zhu from Kenya. She has started a compliance program last year with 10 small companies that she previously trained in business ethics. And what happened is that this compliance club started at the time when the pandemic has already come and affected these companies. And Grace, who is also a very skilled communications trainer, she has helped these small companies improve their digital skills in order to have access to markets at the time of the lockdown. And in addition to these digital training skills, she coupled the training with sessions on compliance, ethics, and integrity, helping these small companies fare through the crisis and faced with a significant business loss, continue to operate and do so in an ethical manner, which I think is very important, especially in the times of a pandemic, as we have seen in, I guess, in most of our countries, if not everywhere. Another example, which I think is worth highlighting, is that of another member of the SAIP Africa network of trainers in compliance and anti-corruption. This is Kunle Akiode. He has worked with a Sudanese organization. He's from Nigeria. He's a consultant with the Institute of Directors, Center for Corporate Governance. And he has helped Al Ula, the Sudanese institute, in an assignment for multinational company. This company wanted to improve its anti-bribery and anti-corruption compliance systems. So Alula contacted Kunle, and he worked with with the 3 members of the Alula team, helping develop a compliance risk assessment tool and conducting this risk assessment in the company company, the client company, and then develop a report with recommendations on how to address, how to mitigate those risks. And the assignment is still in progress. And another example, a third example I would like to share is from my own experience. I have been working with the Women's Association, the Business and Professional Association of Zambia, and my assistance to them has focused on helping them develop a code of conduct. As Anna said, when it comes to what the consultant can do, what are the types of interventions, I helped them develop the code. I did not develop the code for them, although of course that would have been quick and easy. And in addition to that, I have also conducted a session on good governance and compliance with the board of the organization to get their buy-in, but also to make sure that we are on the same page when it comes to what their goal is in terms of good governance and compliance, where they want to take the organization in the future. Thank you, Anna.
Great, thank you for sharing these, Carmen. So back to sort of some methods and how to think about getting the consulting work done. You know, there are multiple tools, and again, I'm hoping in the live session you'll be able to have time to go into actual examples of, you know, if you're hired to do risk assessment, you know, how would you actually do it? Where would you get started? We'll talk about this throughout the training, also in different training components. But you can use, you know, there are a lot of tools out there, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel necessarily. You can look at the frameworks or models or best practices that have been used either by others within the SIPE network or just in the consulting world in general. But again, what you use will really depend on that initial clarity on if a consulting engagement is a change management project. You need to have established that clarity up front. You know, who needs to make the change? What needs to change? Why does it need to change? Within what time frame does it need to change? Where does the change need to happen? Is it within one specific section of the company, the whole company? And then how? What are the steps? And once you establish that, then you pick from the menu of consulting tools that are not unique to compliance by any way. They are just general tools that you can apply to, you know, any consulting field, really. Now let's say a word about best practices, or I like the title here, good and bad about the best practices. So what's good about the so-called best practices? You know, as a consultant, that's part of your role, as you impart things that, you know, have been done before, that have been market tested, that have been effective for our clients, either in your own experience or maybe in some case studies that you read, that are popular. You know, there may be fashionable consultants or fashionable frameworks that are in vogue right now, and everybody wants to use that framework when they work on your problem. It's great, you know, it's good to know them, to be aware. And in fact, in the spirit of lifelong learning, it is your duty as a consultant to stay up to date on what those international best practices might be. And they do save time, right? You can just sort of adapt something that's out there to a particular situation. But adapt is the key word, because what happens if you have a hammer as your tool? Well, every problem, regardless of the nature of the problem, begins to look like a nail, and you just want to hit it with your hammer. But the real world is not that uniform, right? We are not, you know, every company is different. It's not like they came from the same cookie cutter. So whether a particular best practice is applicable to your specific client on this specific assignment, only you and the client can figure it out. And how do you figure out? Again, by understanding the specific situation, by asking the questions to understand what does the real need? What needs to change here? And then the how will depend on those answers. So just bear that in mind that every consulting engagement is different. Yes, you can leverage best practices. Yes, you can leverage past experiences, but be prepared to customize, because ultimately that's really what clients are paying for, tailored solutions. Right, best worst practices. I love this cartoon. Just lack of clarity. Consultant is a very fashionable word. It sounds kind of important. What do you do? Well, I'm a consultant. But what do you actually do, right? So be ready to sort of spell out, have some examples of what maybe you specialize or you're particularly strong in doing. And be clear on the scope of work, like be able to summarize what it is that you were hired to do without using the word consult. And then, just as an aside, this line here, if they call me a consultant. In one of the sessions, we'll talk about red flags for corruption. That's actually one of them. If you see a company that has lots of consultants, but it's not really clear what it is that they're doing exactly, that can be a red flag. That for a real job, maybe facilitation payments, let's say. And you certainly don't want to be that kind of consultant, but also that's sort of the danger of the profession when it comes to anti-corruption. Valuable consultant skills, again, some of them are the same as being a trainer: problem solving, communication, solving issues that may come up. But there is sort of obviously much more emphasis on creative thinking here, just so that you are able to come up with customized, tailored solutions. Also, in a training, it's fairly circumscribed who you communicate with, right? In a training session, you just communicate with the people you train. When you go to a company on a consulting engagement, maybe your initial conversation was with the people who came to the training from that company, but you need to broaden the conversation. As Carmen said, you need to make sure that the top leadership is actually on board. If they are not, nudge them. If you're nudging and they're still not on board, maybe you don't want to take that consulting assignment. But also don't limit yourself with talking just to top leadership. If you really want to understand the red flags and risks, you need to talk to people at the front lines. Sales, probably. That's a big one. So you have to be comfortable with just building rapport and trust and having good communication skills with people at all levels in the organization, just to understand the nature of the problem. And again, organization time management, that's pretty much the same thing as with training, except here, the expectations part comes into play. So what clients expect from your time and for their time working with you, the bar is much higher in consulting. They want something specific. They want to feel like you really, made a difference or delivered something that helps them change something in the company for the better. And we can brainstorm more on other skills in the live session. That brings us back to our pre-recorded session. So let's, in a good practice or best practice of training, let's take a quick look at our session objectives again. Let's make sure we covered all of them. We talked about training and consulting processes. We talked about what techniques to use to design and deliver an effective training session, how to build technical skills that you can apply both in training and in consulting. And specifically for consulting, recognize the roles that consultants can play. What are some of the key critical success factors there. I think we covered all of what we wanted to.
Oh, yes.
And hopefully everybody feels set and motivated to take this conversation live with Carmen. In the meantime, since I think some time will pass between when you see this presentation and then when you have a session with Carmen, take a look at some of the resources we put here. Again, back to extending the learning. This is one opportunity for us to help you extend your learning. And then feel free to reach out to us. I won't be in the live session with Carmen, but I'll be facilitating some of the other sessions. I think it's on February 8th and 9th. And then Carmen, your session is when?
22nd, on February 22nd. Yeah.
All right. So in the meantime, if you need to reach us, don't hesitate to do so. Carmen, any final words?
Thank you very much. Looking forward to seeing you all in the live session. I look forward to hearing from you and hearing about your experiences as trainers, as consultants. Talk about some of the good experiences you have had, some of the challenges, some of the things that perhaps we need to discuss during the live session. Any questions, please feel free to send them in advance. I'll be happy to respond by email, or we can address them during the session. Thank you very much, everybody, and see you on February 22nd.